I'm so excited.
Hi, I'm Reba Hervis, Artistic Director at Overshadowed Theatrical Productions. Welcome to this week's episode From the Wings with Rebecca Leland.
Happy to be here. I'm so excited for our topic today.
Well, what is it that you want to talk about today?
I'm wanting to walk down memory lane with you. My roommate came the other day to come see a performance, and she ushered for Overshadowed, and they took her on this VIP, like, very spontaneous tour. And she was like, the hallway. I said, what hallway? She goes, the one with all the posters on it. She said, Rebecca, that's so special. And I was like, oh. And I think I was like you, where I'm like, I was used to it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's just all the plays she's done. She goes, that's incredible. So I wanted to talk to you about when you walk down that hallway. What were some, like, give us 5 stories from 5 different plays, like starting from maybe near the beginning, that just bring you joy, and maybe stories that maybe just make you laugh, maybe stories where God really had to show up.
Well, I think I have to talk about It's a Wonderful Life because we've done it 3 times. The first time was in 2006. Wow. In it, I knew that it was going to be important to capture the feel of such an iconic movie. Yeah. I knew that the part of George Bailey would be really hard to, because who's Jimmy Stewart, right? Yeah. But we had a person be in a show a couple of years before that, Mike Larson, who is our technical director. And so it's the first time I've really gone after somebody and said, hey, would you come and audition for this? Because I could kind of see him with the way he was built at that particular time, that he kind of looked like, and he kind of acted. And he really mimes really well. Yep. So he does really good impressions of people, and I thought he could really pull it off. And so he became our George Bailey, and he actually was George Bailey the second time that we did it as well, but then he kind of aged out, and so he was Mr. Potter. My memory that I really love from that show is we did it. This is when we were first started. We were in Itasca Baptist Church, and I don't know why I'm cursed that I don't have big backstage areas, but I did not have a very big one. And so there's this scene when George realizes that Mary Bailey has changed because he never existed, right? And so what happened to her is she becomes lonely and very shy, and has a ruined life because he never was there to give them happy life. And so he realizes that, and he starts screaming, Mary, Mary, when he wants to go back to her. And he runs down the middle aisle through our audience, and then he ran underneath the church basement and then came up backstage, and the whole time he's running underneath the basement,
saying Mary.
You can hear him from the audience yelling Mary, Mary, Mary until he gets back up on stage. And one of those memories that I just think about when I think about that production, and I just enjoyed it so much because in that theater it just made you feel like you were part of it in that particular space. That theater, literally, it came out right to the edge of where people were sitting.
Because when you say theater, this is church, right? Space, so it's like, that's what's hard about it, because it's like you made it into a theater.
Yes,
but
exactly.
It's supposed to be...
it's really a church.
The choir people are supposed to be just walking there, filing back there.
Exactly.
Yeah, people aren't supposed to be building sets.
And the pews, because literally we did not have chairs at that time, we had pews. And the pews went, the knees were right up next to the edge of the platform / stage for me. So much so that sometimes people would put their feet up there, or they would set their coffee drink there.
On stage.
Yes, and we would have to go, no, our space, we don't have very much of it, so you need to move it off. So the man that was playing Uncle Billy had a son. It was his job as the goon. I don't know what we called it. There's a part in the play that's written he's the person that moved Mr. Potter around. And
that's so funny.
I think in the script it called him a goon.
A goon.
And so he's pushing around our man in the wheelchair, and he had to come around this pole because the theater space, the church, had poles on the stage that we had to work around. Yes. And he drove Mr. Potter around and dropped the wheelchair off into the audience. And in it, there was this little lady. She was probably 80 or 90. I don't know. She's a frail little thing. It's literally... She's holding it up, and the people next to her are trying to get the wheelchair back up on stage. So That's one of my memories from the very first.
But he didn't go down.
He did not go
No
down.
Potter was harmed.
And it did not hurt her either. So thank you, Jesus. If I've never thanked you before,
my
thank you,
word.
Jesus, for not doing that. The next one that really is a huge memory for me is Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. In 2015, we took on the iconic Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And I talked to our technical team and Steve Keller, who we've talked about on here before, and said, what can we build a Chitty Chitty Bang Bang car?
You cannot do Chitty Chitty Bang Bang
without a car.
And what that car
there's
has
a reason
to do,
that the Chitty Chitty car takes a bow at the end of the play.
It deserves it.
It deserves it, right?
And what did he say?
And he said yes. And then it proceeded to be probably the hardest thing that at that particular time we'd ever done.
Why?
And people were literally working around the clock to get the car done.
Wow.
So it got built in the Larson's garage. And Dawn tells this story, Mike's wife. She tells a story that literally she'd come home from work and there'd be people in her garage doing whatever they needed to do for the car. And Mike and her would spend the evening, and she'd go out and say goodnight to them, and then she'd go to bed, and the next morning she'd get up, and there was either another group of people or the same people that were working. Like, literally, we worked around the clock. And part of it was because so much of it was 3D printed.
Wow.
But then there's another part of it that we were pouring molds, and things had to, like, cure, and we took the fenders of it that were made out of wood, and they had to bend them to make them work. And so there was just so many things that had to be done to it to get it to work. So it's a beautiful car.
Amazing.
It's probably, if we had to rebuild it now, it would probably cost us $66,000. It probably ended up costing us about $30,000 back then, but it's probably a $66,000 car.
Not only built a car, because it runs. It
Oh
is
yeah,
a running
like
car.
It's done by remote control, so it has wheels that it moves straight across stage, but it also can go sideways across stage. It has wings that come out. It has a hydraulic lift so that the back end of it comes forward.
It has fake wheels,
yes,
that go out.
The wheels go. It's a beautiful car. It really is. And it has, so I'll start with my discouragement first and then tell you what God did. So it's one of these pinnacle moments in my life at Overshadowed that you continue to say, someone might, that it's a time that God showed himself strong, and that it doesn't necessarily have to be the way you thought it was supposed to be. It's just something God did, right? And I knew from the very beginning that the car was everything, but the car did not get done on time. So opening weekend, we had a car, but it didn't move.
Wow.
And I was so discouraged. And I tell this story all the time about I just couldn't come to play practice, because to me, I'm always a positive person, and I'm always like telling the cast, we're so excited about this, and we're doing this, and we're doing this. And I had nothing that I was excited about. I was so sad and discouraged, because I'm like, nobody's going to want to come see Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and we have a car that's just kind of meh, and I don't know how to fix it, and I don't know how to make people excited about it. And it's always really important as a theater to have your opening weekend be as good as your last weekend is supposed to be, because if not, the people don't want to come the first weekend, and so then you can't sell tickets the opening weekend. So your opening weekend has to be strong, and mine was not going to be, and it was very sad for me. And so I tell the story that I'm laying on, my husband usually is never home from work by the time it's time for me to leave and go to rehearsal, but he would come home and I'd be just laying on the couch, and he'd go, what are you doing? And I'd be like, I can't go. I'm so discouraged. And he would say, what is wrong with you? Get up and go. And I did. And now that car, we had the car for the second weekend, and it was beautiful. And the production was a success. I think it would have been more of a success if we'd had it the opening weekend, but we were okay. But the brilliant thing, because I almost pulled the plug a couple of times where I'm like, let's just find a car to rent. And we talked to actually CYT to see if we could get their car and a couple of different things. Wow. But God showed himself strong and convinced me not to do that. And that car now is our biggest resource as far as rental property goes. And
she has traveled.
She's traveled. And we sometimes take pictures when she's going someplace and say, you know, Chitty's here now, and this is where she's starring now if you want to go see her. And it's been a very, very big asset for us as far as bringing in another stream of revenue for us.
But you were, when making it, at no point were you like, can't wait for this to be on someone else's stage one day. You were just like, I want it on mine. And God's like, actually, it's not going to be on your stage the whole run that you wanted it to
not
be
really. That's not really why we're giving it to you, Reba. Wow. Yeah. So it's been a really great God moment.
Wow.
The next thing was the play right after that was an original play that I wrote with and then the music was arranged by Brett Carlson, but it was not written by Brett Carlson. It was written by Philip Bliss. And those of you who may or may not know him, he was a prolific songwriter and written things like the words to It As Well With My Soul. And I had written a one-act play several years before that we performed in our church. And it had always kind of been my goal to write a full presentation of it. And so I did this year. And it was just a really great experience. There's this group of people that kind of got to be really good friends during that as a cast.
Started a Bible study, actually.
Yes. Yeah. And so from that has grown a lot of really close connections. And I don't think I knew that that was going to be what was happening.
Wow.
There's another story that is really powerful that comes out of that one, too. I didn't have four guys for a quartet. And Philip Bliss, part of his story is something that has to do with a quartet. And so I don't pull favors very often, but when I pull them, I need to have people that I can go to and say, really need this. And so Stephen White, who was recently, his kids were recently in Joseph, I just love that he did this for me. So I went to him and I said, I really need a quartet. And I said, I know that your time is very valuable. Is there any way you can be in it for me? And so I really did pull a card and say, please, as a friend, I really need you. Oh, he's got a great voice. Stephen, you need to be back on the stage more often. But during that particular time, Michaela was pregnant. And we prayed and we prayed and we prayed for that baby. And Stephen talked, I think the last night or somewhere in there, that he knows that it was something that he was meant to be here for that time in his life, and the encouragement that the prayer brought him. And he wrote a letter to his unborn baby and talked about it that he read to us at a cast. And I was like, oh my goodness, one day this is going to be a really powerful story. So those are the moments that overshadowed that you just know that God's timing is so important for what you're doing and when you're doing it. And everything else might not come out exactly the way it's supposed to, but the production is about so much more than the audience. The audience is important too, but telling God's story and seeing it in the connections between us. So that's also a real big moment. When I think through the past. The next one I'm going to say is Mary Poppins, and we had someone fly on our stage.
This was Overshadowed's first
flying. I will never forget when Mary flew for the first time, hearing the reactions of the audience. It was such, as a director, it's just
everything you wanted.
It was so good because they were so shocked that we did it, and then watched her, and it just kind of brought that satisfaction both as an artist, but also as an audience member to see it end like that. It was just so great. I feel like Mary Poppins, honestly, was a little bit of a turning point for the growth of Overshadowed. We started getting more talented people that were coming out and auditioning regularly. Our dance skills went up and our requirements for all of that. Our sets, I think, have always been great, but I feel like the whole quality of everything, sets, costumes, acting, dancing, it all went up. And our audiences, like we started selling more tickets. It just, everything
because word of mouth,
came together.
It's like, no, she flew. She flew. This theater is small and she flew. And you made that happen. Wow.
Then if people are telling me I can't do something and I'm looking at the challenges, the next thing I started thinking about was Singing in the Rain.
Wow.
And so then we started studying and saying, okay, how can we make it rain on stage? And again, it's because I have such great people. So our technical director, Mike Larson, and then our construction set design, Johan and Lee. And then Steve Keller, they all started to get together and experiment and try to see how they can figure out how to make it rain. And we did.
And we have an episode on From the Wings if you are interested.
Right. Yeah, and how that happened. Yes.
I don't, like, when I even think of my own little brain, like, how to make it rain, seeing what they came up with was incredible.
One of the things that was really important to me is that because we went to a lot of theaters to kind of research how they did it. And so it always was a place that they were like, okay, now he's going to go dance and it's going to rain, and he would have to go up on a level.
Which makes sense because that's where
because that's where the water is, or that's where they're gathering it or whatever. And I was like, no, I don't want to tell my audience that now we're going to go make it rain. I want it to be like, it's raining and I'm here in the street. So it was really important for me not to have him go up on a platform. So
they made it happen.
We made it happen. And
incredible.
It was great. So yeah, those are really kind of the top 5. Yeah. I guess if I want to give an honorable mention to anything, I did a play called I Remember Pop, and it was written about me and my grandfather, and I think that one will always be super special to me because it was about my grandfather and the influence that he had on me when I was growing up. He was such a mighty man of God, and he was a circuit riding preacher. There was a time that he had 7 churches, and so when I would go visit him during the summer or whatever, we'd go to one church on Sunday morning and a different church on Sunday night because he had these 7, 8 churches that he would go around, and we'd go to a different one every service, and he just meant so much to me, and so it was really nice to kind of relive it. It was so powerful because Mike Larson played my grandfather, and then Neva Hoff that we talked about a minute ago was his nurse at the end.
That was like one of the most powerful scenes.
And they're talking at the end, and both of them are in real life like bawling as they're doing it. You're watching it as an audience member and realizing how special this was for them to think about this moment in the lives of the people. It was so great because audience members would come up to me afterwards and they'd say, you have no idea how healing that is for me because I'm a caregiver for my parents, or I'm a caregiver for this, and like to realize the impact that my life could be having right now on taking care of them and what it might mean in the future. She goes, people were just telling me, and that's not why I write it, but it was just super special for me to hear how God used it.
Like
and so they were still using my grandfather, even though my grandfather has been gone.
Yes, because his life obviously impacted so many people, but now his life continues to impact people because you out of
it's a pretty cool artist moment.
Incredible. Incredible.
So, anyway, I'm hoping there's a lot more special overshadowed moments to come, but those are my top 6.
Oh, I love it. And I love the beautiful hallway. And I hope if you come and you try it for an overshadowed show and you are a part of it, the first time you get to see the hallway, I hope you enjoy it just as much as our first time we got to see the hallway and you building the hallway, both walking through each show and then getting to now pass by and see. And each and every poster is signed by those who were in the show.
I love going to look at the posters and seeing sometimes when we have kids and their tiny little scribble of their autograph, and then see them flash forward 10 years later when they're grown up and that they do another show and you get to see the script and how different it is. It's just fun to see families grow up here.
It's such a snapshot. It's a snapshot of a moment that people's lives truly were changed by each and every show.
Yeah,
so thank you. But until next time, this is just me
and me
talking to you
from the wings.